Chosen by an alien queen, the human refused the first night, but destiny waited. The stars outside the viewing window of the alien ship looked like cold sparks. Frozen in the dark sky, Commander Jack Renner stood silently, hands behind his back, staring at the galaxy that never seemed to rest. He had seen many strange things since he left Earth, but nothing as strange as the offer made to him by the Zalari princess. It all began 32 days ago. He had been sent as part of a human peace team to the powerful and proud warrior race, the Zalari. They were tall, sharp-featured, and their skin glowed with a faint blue light under strong emotion, and Arlena, daughter of the Empress, was not only their strongest warrior but also the most desired woman on the entire planet. She was fierce, cold, and beautiful, but for some reason no one could explain she had chosen Jack as her bondmate. He didn't understand their rituals completely, but he knew enough to know one thing: he was expected to deflower her. It wasn't just a romantic thing, it was part of a sacred joining ceremony that passed her royal power to the next stage. The problem? Jack didn't believe in forcing anything, not even under pressure from royalty. He had refused every time, making excuse after excuse, and now the 32nd day had arrived. The door to his chamber hissed open. Jack turned quickly, expecting a guard or a messenger, but instead, it was her. Arlena stepped in, her long silver robe flowing behind her like mist, her bright violet eyes locked onto his. Sharp and steady, she didn't speak at first, just stood there, letting the silence stretch like a blade between them. "I waited," she said finally, voice calm but cold. "I followed the ancient customs. I gave you time. I gave you respect." Jack stayed silent, unsure what to say. She walked closer, slow steps echoing in the quiet room. "Do you know what happens when a royal bond is refused?" she asked. Jack shook his head slowly. Arlena reached up and unfastened the top of her robe. It fell open slightly, revealing glowing tattoos across her collarbone, symbols of her bloodline. Then she said the words he had hoped never to hear. "Human, it's been over a month, and you haven't deflowered me." Her voice trembled, not with shame, but with anger and frustration. "You insult my name," she whispered. "You insult me." Jack took a breath, his throat dry. "It's not that I don't find you beautiful," he said. "You are, more than words." "Then what is the reason?" she asked, stepping closer. He looked into her glowing eyes. "Because I don't want it to be a rule," he said. "I want it to be a choice for both of us." She blinked, surprised. "No Zalari has ever waited," she admitted. "Humans do," Jack said softly. "We wait for the right moment." He reached out and gently touched her hand. Her skin was warm, and the soft blue light beneath it pulsed once. But before she could answer, the emergency lights turned red. Sirens blared through the hallway. A robotic voice echoed, "Security breach on Deck 5. All personnel report to emergency stations." Arlena snapped into motion, closing her robe and stepping beside Jack. He was already grabbing his combat belt and communicator. "Stay here," he said. "I'll handle it." But she grabbed his arm, her eyes now bright with danger. "You are my bondmate," she said. "Where you go, I go." They ran down the hall together, boots thudding on metal floors. The ship shook slightly, a vibration that didn't feel like normal turbulence. Jack's heart pounded, not from fear but from something deeper, something he couldn't explain. As they turned the corner, they saw smoke rising from the lift chamber. Sparks rained down from the ceiling, and two crew members lay unconscious. On the floor, Jack knelt to check their pulses, both alive. Just stunned, Arlena stepped forward, scanning the shadows with her curved blade in hand. Suddenly, a low hissing sound came from the dark ahead. Not mechanical, not normal. Something had entered the ship. Something not Zalari, not human, and it was hunting. Jack stood, eyes narrowing. He handed Arlena his backup pistol. She held it awkwardly, clearly more used to blades. "I'll teach you," he said with a half smile. She looked at him and gave a quick nod. For a moment, the argument from earlier vanished. Now, they were soldiers and something was coming. Something that didn't care about rituals or waiting. Something that wanted them both dead, and Jack knew. Whatever it was, this was just the beginning. The corridor was filled with smoke, and the red lights made it look like blood covered the walls. Jack moved ahead slowly, His blaster pointed forward, his eyes sharp. Behind him, Arlena followed. Silently, the alien pistol heavy in her hands. She had trained her whole life with blades. Not human weapons, but in this moment, she trusted him and she trusted his strange, earth-born instincts. They stepped over a fallen door panel, wires hanging like vines. The ship was too quiet. Even during emergency drills, there was always shouting, movement, orders. Now there was nothing, just that eerie red glow and the faint crackling of broken circuits. Jack tapped the communicator on his wrist. "Command, this is Commander Renner. What's your status?" Only static replied. "Communication is jammed," he muttered, mostly to himself. Arlena gave him a sharp look. This was planned. A sudden hiss made them both freeze. Something moved ahead fast, low, too quick for normal eyes to follow. Jack raised his blaster, but the smoke swallowed the shape. Arlena crouched, blade ready in her other hand. Her voice was calm but low. "Whatever it is, it's hunting." Jack scanned the ceiling, then the floor. There another flicker of motion to the left. He turned and fired. The red bolt sliced through the air but hit only empty space. Then something dropped from the ceiling right behind them. It was fast, like liquid shadow. With limbs that bent the wrong way, Jack spun and fired again, hitting it in the side. It screeched an awful, high-pitched sound that hurt his ears, then scrambled back into the darkness. He and Arlena backed into each other, weapons ready, eyes searching. Jack's voice was firm. "That wasn't Solari, or any species in our records. It's a shade beast," Arlena whispered. "But no, they don't travel in space." Jack's mind raced. If it wasn't a known species, then someone had released it. A bioweapon, a saboteur? He didn't like guessing games when lives were at risk. He knelt by a control panel on the wall and rewired. A small piece with a multi-tool from his belt. A small screen flickered on, showing the interior cameras of Deck 5. Jack's heart dropped. 3 more of those creatures were crawling across the walls, heading toward the engineering bay. Worse, they were ignoring Solari guards and instead scanning. For him, Arlena saw the screen and frowned. "Why do they focus on you?" "I don't know," Jack lied, though something cold twisted in his gut. He had kept a secret since he left Earth, a mission that went wrong, a project that was erased from files. And now something from that mission was here, on this ship. One of the creatures turned to the camera and stared directly into it. It opened its mouth, showing rows of teeth, and a flickering voice came through the screen. "Jack." Arlena's head snapped toward him, her eyes glowing. "They know you," she said, voice tight with suspicion and fear. Jack stood slowly. "We need to reach the engine room." "You're hiding something," she said, stepping in front of him. "I'll tell you everything. If we survive," he answered, walking past her. For a moment, she looked like she would stop him. But then she followed, her grip tight on the pistol. They moved down a maintenance shaft, crawling through smoke-filled vents. Jack could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He had been trained for chaos, but not for this. These things weren't just killing, they were searching for him. When they reached the lower deck, they found the power core room. 3 Solari soldiers were down and moving, their faces frozen in fear. Something had drained them of life without spilling blood. Then they heard it, footsteps, slow and wrong, like bones cracking with each step. Jack raised his blaster and whispered, "Now or never." The creature appeared from behind the core. Its body shimmered, partly invisible, and it carried something. In its hand, a small metal badge, marked with the Human Earth Forces emblem, his emblem. The one he lost years ago, on a mission that was supposed to be classified forever. Arlena looked from the creature to Jack. Her voice was cold and sharp. "What did you do on Earth, human?" The creature stepped forward and spoke in broken English. "Return the memory." Jack stared at it, his blood cold. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a threat to the ship. It was a ghost from his past, and now it had found him again. And worse, Arlena was caught in the middle. Jack stood frozen, the strange alien creature holding his Earth Forces badge between sharp, twisted fingers. Its eyes were like black holes, and its voice was a broken whisper. "Return to memory, Jack Renner." Arlena stepped in front of him, her blade humming with energy. "How does it know your name?" she demanded, her voice sharp with fury. Jack didn't answer, not right away. His mind was stuck on one thing. This thing wasn't just here to kill, it was here for him. The creature tilted its head, then slowly began to melt back into the shadows. Jack raised his blaster and fired. The bolt hit only smoke. It was gone, vanished again into the walls. Jack exhaled slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. He looked at Arlena, her eyes filled with questions. She said nothing, waiting. He knew he couldn't lie anymore. Back on Earth, Jack began. I was part of something called Ghost Protocol. Arlena narrowed her eyes. Sounds like a human death squad. He nodded. It was. We were sent on secret missions to dangerous zones, places where tech, creatures, or threats were too strange for normal soldiers. He paused, his voice lowering. One mission, we found a facility with creatures sealed in cryopods. No records, no origin, just warnings and alien symbols. He looked at the badge still clutched in the creature's claw now, just a memory in his head. We were ordered to destroy them, burn everything, but I couldn't pull the trigger. It felt wrong. Arlena listened silently, her arms crossed. And now one of them found you. She said quietly, because you let it live. No, Jack said. Because I escaped. But they never forgot me. A loud clang echoed through the floor beneath their boots. Then another closer, heavier, whatever those creatures were. They were moving through the ship, and not hiding anymore. The power core behind them flickered, the lights dimming to a pale blue. We need to reach the central control hub, Jack said. If we can seal the bulkhead doors, we can trap them. I'm coming with you, Arlena said. Already. Moving toward the hallway, Jack didn't argue this time. As they ran through the corridor, alarms started again, this time louder, more urgent, but not human alarms. Zolari tones. Deep and vibrating. They passed injured crew, Zolari guards, who looked at Jack with suspicion and fear. Whispers followed them. That's the human they want. Why is he still on board? He's cursed. Arlena heard every word and turned to them with fire in her eyes. She shouted in her native tongue, her voice like a thunder strike. They fell silent immediately. Stepping back, Jack glanced at her, surprised she didn't look at him, but her voice was calm again. You are not alone in this. When they reached the command hub, a security team blocked the entrance. The captain of the guard, a tall male named Sarvik, raised his weapon. The human doesn't go in. He said, this is a Zolari issue now. Arlena stepped forward. I overrule you, you can't. Sarvik growled. He's not bonded. He has no rights here. Without a word, Arlena stepped in front of Jack. She reached for her blade but then stopped. Instead, she turned and did something no one expected. She took Jack's hand in front of everyone. The blue light from her palm merged with his skin, glowing softly. Gasps filled the hallway. That's the bond. Someone whispered, it's real. Another said. Sarvik stared in disbelief, then lowered his weapon slowly. Then, the human enters, he said, stepping aside. Jack looked at Arlena, confused. You just bonded with me. He whispered. I did, she replied, not looking at him. I had to. Inside the control room, screens showed the entire ship. 4 of the creatures now roamed the engineering deck, and 1 had entered the medical bay. Jack pointed at one of the cameras, zoomed in, and his breath caught in his throat. On the screen, the creature looked directly at the camera. Then it whispered again through the ship's audio system. Jack, complete the memory, or we will open the vault. Arlena stared at him, confused. What vault? But Jack's face had already turned pale. There was a vault on Earth, a sealed chamber under a black site. It held memories, data, DNA, maybe even other creatures. If these things reached Earth, it would be over. They're not just hunting me, Jack said. They're trying to get home. And now the whole ship was at risk because of what he had left behind. The air was colder beneath the palace, filled with strange noises and vibrations, the kind that lived deep in ancient stone. Raylan walked behind Caliph through the old tunnels, his skin still glowing faintly from whatever had awakened inside him during the ritual chamber. She moved ahead in silence, her eyes glowing gently in the dark, like she knew the path without needing light. They had been walking for almost an hour now, and not a single guard had followed them. Raylan expected a trap, but none came. Instead, the walls around them became older, less polished, more like a ruin than a palace. Vines of silver moss clung to the stone, and old markings carved into the walls pulsed gently as they passed, almost like they were reacting to him, not her. "I don't understand what's happening to me," he said quietly. "Why is my skin glowing? Why do these walls react?" Kalith stopped and turned slowly, her face calm but serious. "Because you are no longer just human." Raylan blinked. "What? You passed the first phase of the bonding," she said, stepping closer. "But it didn't stop there. It reached deeper, into you, into your cells. You are changing." He stepped back. "You said it was a tradition, a night of bonding, not mutation." "It was," she said, "for most. But you're not like the others. You resisted. You delayed. That triggered something older, something buried in the ritual's core, the original purpose." Raylan shook his head. "And what's that?" Kalith looked toward the ancient doorway ahead, her voice lowering, not to unite lovers, but to awaken guardians. Before Raylan could ask anything more, the ground trembled under their feet, not a small shake but a deep, thunderous groan from below. Kalith grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a small platform at the center of the chamber. She pressed her palm to the panel, and the platform lit up, then began to descend slowly into the darkness below. Raylan looked down through the open center. There was nothing but blackness, and the sound of wind, and something else, voices whispering in a language he couldn't understand as they descended. Kalith finally spoke again. "Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't bond for love or family. They bonded with warriors of other races to protect something hidden in the core of this world." Raylan frowned. "What kind of something?" Kalith didn't answer right away, and that silence chilled him more than the dark. Finally, she said, "A seed, a seed." He echoed, "A living relic," she said, "one that can create or destroy entire ecosystems, even species." "And the queen?" he asked. "She wants to use it. She wants to control it." Kalith replied, "And the only way to awaken it is through a completed bonding between two compatible bloodlines." "And you think that's me?" Raylan asked. "Why me?" Kalith looked at him now, her voice softer. "Because the seed has already started to respond to you, even before the ritual began." Suddenly, the platform jolted to a stop, and a wide metal door hissed open in front of them, revealing a chamber larger than anything Raylan had ever seen. The walls were alive with light, pulsing like veins, and in the center floated a massive glowing crystal, cracked and humming with deep energy. Round it were ancient machines, broken, twisted, half swallowed by the stone floor. Raylan stepped forward, drawn to the crystal. Even as his heartbeat pounded in his chest, the glow in his skin grew brighter. The closer he walked, until the lines beneath his arms and hands burned like fire. Kalith called out, "Don't touch it," but it was too late. His fingers brushed the edge of the crystal. The entire room exploded in light, and Raylan's mind was thrown into darkness. In that void, he saw visions, flashes of other planets burning, of armies rising, of alien kings swearing blood oaths beside human warriors, of the seed blooming like a sun in the heart of a dead world, and of a voice whispering a name, his name. Then silence. He fell to the floor, gasping, shaking. Kalith knelt beside him, her eyes wide with awe. "It chose you," she said. Raylan looked up at her, his voice barely a whisper. "What happens now?" Before she could answer, an alarm echoed from deep above them. Red lights flashed through the walls of the chamber. Kalith's voice turned to ice. "They know we're here." And above them, in the palace halls, the queen stood before her generals. Her voice sharp, "Seal the old chambers. Kill the human." The race for control of the seed had just begun. Raylan ran, but the halls beneath the palace were not built for humans. They twisted and climbed like a serpent's spine. Glowing walls shimmered with alien symbols that shifted. When he looked too long, Kalith stayed ahead, always just a few steps in front, leading him through shadows he barely understood. Her voice echoed back to him, calm and urgent. "They've locked the main levels. We only have one path left, through the spire." Behind them, the tunnels lit up red, meaning soldiers had entered the lower systems, probably elite ones, the kind that didn't ask questions before pulling the trigger. Raylan's breath came in short bursts, but he kept running, not just for himself, but because of what he had seen. That crystal, That seat it had shown him visions no human should see. Wars fought by beings taller than mountains, cities burning in light instead of fire. And at the center of it all a shape like a tree made of stars, growing from black soil that pulsed like a heart when they reached the spire's entrance. Caliph pressed her palm to the door, but nothing happened. No lights, no sound. Her eyes narrowed. They've overridden it. Raylan looked back. We're out of time. I can hotwire it, she said quickly, but I need you to cover me. She knelt by the door panel and pulled a blade from her belt, slicing open a small control grid. Wires sparked as her fingers moved quickly. Raylan turned, eyes scanning the tunnel behind them. That's when he saw them. 3 Zalari guards, fully armored, glowing rifles pointed forward, moving silently like wraiths. The lead one raised his weapon, and without thinking, Raylan raised his arm to shield himself. Something flashed from under his skin, bright gold, and the energy bolt bounced off him, exploding against the wall behind. The guards froze, stunned. Raylan stared at his own hand, breathing hard, then charged forward, not even waiting for the next shot. He tackled the lead guard, slamming him to the ground. The rifle flew across the floor. Another guard tried to strike him with a blade, but Raylan caught his wrist and twisted until he heard a crack. The third ran smart one. When he turned back, Caliph was already standing, the spire door wide open. Behind her, inside, she said, and they ran through the door ceiling with a heavy sound of stone on stone. Inside the spire, everything felt still, ancient, and untouched. Massive beams of glowing blue light ran along the walls, humming with quiet power. The floor under their feet was glass, and beneath it was nothing, just a void of swirling stars. Like the entire spire floated in space. This place, Raylan whispered, it's not part of the palace. Caliph nodded, walking slowly toward the raised platform at the center. It's older than the palace, older than the empire. It was built by the Starbinders, before our kind even knew how to name the sky. Raylan followed her, still shaking from the fight. And the queen wants to keep this secret. She wants to lock it away, Caliph said, her voice colder now. She fears what it could awaken. As they reached the platform, it lit up under their feet, revealing a series of floating screens, each showing a different world, a different sky, a different kind of ruin. Raylan looked around, overwhelmed. What is this? Caliph turned to him, her expression unreadable. It's a choice, he frowned. What do you mean? Each of these worlds once had a guardian, she said, someone who bonded with the seed and kept it safe, until others tried to take it, harvest it, weaponize it, and every time, it ended in fire. Raylan looked at her, his voice softer now. Why me, Caliph? Why not someone from your own people? She stepped closer, placing her hand gently on his chest, right over the glowing lines beneath his skin. Because you chose not to take me, even when the law said you could. Because you refused power, and that makes you worthy to hold it. Raylan didn't know what to say, his mind filled with noise, with questions, with fear, but also something else, something calm, like the seed had rooted itself in him, steady and slow, waiting for a decision. But far above, in the palace tower, the queen watched everything unfold on a private screen, her face twisted with quiet rage. He cannot be allowed to ascend, she said. If he bonds with the girl willingly, the entire court loses control. A figure stepped from the shadows beside her, Vecran, alive, armored again, and silent. I want him erased, the queen said coldly, before he awakens the others. Back inside the spire, Caliph looked at Raylan one last time. Are you ready to finish what started the moment you refused me? Raylan took a slow breath, nodded once, and stepped into the light. The bonding would begin, and nothing in the empire would ever be the same. Caliph opened her eyes and gasped, her fingers tightening around Raylan's. The chamber around them had vanished, the walls, the floor, even the air felt gone. Only stars remained, spinning slow above their heads like a ceiling of memory. They stood in a place outside time, inside the seat itself. Raylan looked at her, not as an alien, not as a princess, but as something more, something connected to him now. Their hands glowed where their blood met. The lines of light that had once stayed on his skin now moved to hers too, weaving between them like threads of fate. This wasn't just a bonding. It was a merging, Raylan saw flashes in his mind, images from the seed's memory planets torn by greed, rulers begging ancient machines for more power, guardians who once stood tall, broken by their own people, every time the same pattern, every time the same fall. But he also saw something different. Two souls choosing to share the burden, not out of law, not out of tradition, but out of choice. Then the seed spoke again, not with words, but with feeling. Balance restored. The stars collapsed into a single point of light, and Raylan awoke gasping in Calith's arms, still inside the spire. But something had changed. Outside, alarms were blaring. Distant crashes shook the walls, and the scent of smoke was in the air. Calith helped him to his feet. "They've found us," she said, voice low, "and they're not waiting anymore." Raylan nodded, but his steps were different now, stronger, quieter, as if the stone beneath him listened when he walked. They reached the lift shaft just as the door exploded inwards, sending shards of metal and fire across the floor. Vecren stepped through, armored fully in dark obsidian plating, glowing veins of red energy pulsing across his chest. His eyes locked on Raylan, wild and hateful. "You gave up your chance to be her mate," he spat. "Now you're just a mistake. That needs to be erased." Raylan stepped forward, hands calm. "Funny," he said. "Because you look more broken than me." Vecren roared and charged. Calith tried to block him, but he struck her aside with a shockwave from his gauntlet, slamming her into the wall. She crumpled to the ground, dazed. Raylan met Vecren mid-charge, their bodies crashing like thunder. But this time, Raylan didn't fall back. His hands glowed gold, and when Vecren struck him, the energy sparked and rebounded, flinging the brute into the spire wall. The structure itself screamed, columns of light surging between the cracks in the stone. Raylan didn't chase him. He stood still, raising one hand to the spire's core, and it responded. The chamber shifted. Lights realigned. A massive projection bloomed above them, broadcasting across the Empire's skies, cities, courts. Every screen, every drone, every device, and on it appeared the truth. Raylan's visions from the seed images of the Empress hoarding power, suppressing history, destroying the line of guardians so no one could threaten her rule, hiding the real reason behind the rituals. The Empire watched in silence as their leaders' lies unraveled. In the palace throne room, the Empress rose from her seat in rage. "Shut it down," she screamed. "Cut the broadcast now." But the spire was older than her crown and stronger than her voice. Back in the chamber, Vecren lunged once more, desperate and wild. But Raylan didn't meet him with fists this time. He simply placed one glowing hand on the floor, and the spire answered. A wave of pure light surged upward, wrapping around Vecren like vines of flame, lifting him into the air, then dropping him hard, unconscious and broken. Calith stood, watching Raylan quietly, her expression unreadable. "You didn't kill him," she said. Raylan looked down at his hands, the glow fading. "He's not my enemy," he said. "He's just a tool of someone afraid." She walked to him, slowly, gently placing her hand on his chest. "And what are you now?" He looked at her, really looked, and replied, "Free." High above, the stars shimmered in approval. As the spire sent one final pulse across the Empire, the era of queens, courts, and rituals had ended. The era of choice had begun. The wind on the high towers was sharp and cold, carrying the scent of burning stone and broken history. Raylan stood at the edge of the sky spire, Calith beside him, both watching the world change beneath their feet. All across the Empire, lights were going dark, not from destruction, but from control systems shutting down, towers blinking out one by one, old rules turning to dust. The truth had spread faster than any army could move, broadcast from the spires, ancient core to every corner of the Empire. Cities that once worshipped the Empress now stood in silence, unsure what to believe, unsure what to do next. Raylan said nothing for a long time, then quietly asked, "How long before she strikes back?" Calith didn't answer right away, then said, "She won't wait. She can't. The longer we stand, the more control she loses." He looked at her, her silver eyes steady, her blade still on her hip, even though they both knew this fight wasn't about weapons anymore. It was about choices. A voice echoed behind them, smooth, cold, and familiar. "You've made your point, They turned, and there she was, the Empress herself, standing alone at the top of the stairs, no guards, number crown, no armor, only a simple cloak of midnight black, her expression unreadable. Raylan didn't move, didn't speak. She stepped closer, each footstep a quiet threat. "You think truth makes you a ruler?" she asked. "You think waking old machines and spilling old stories makes you better than me?" "I didn't want any of this," Raylan said calmly. "I didn't come to take anything. I just refused to be part of a lie." The Empress tilted her head. "Then what will you do with the power now? Rule, destroy, or run like the others? Who carried the seed before you?" Kalith stepped between them, her voice like a blade. "He won't become you." The Empress looked at her daughter, not with anger, but sadness. "You broke the line for him. You gave away the throne, the legacy, everything." "I gave him my choice," Kalith said. "That's more than you ever gave anyone." The Empress paused, then said softly, "You still have time to undo this. Kneel, complete the old rite, and I'll forgive everything." Raylan stepped forward slowly, golden light pulsing under his skin, his voice clear. "I'd rather burn your empire to the ground than kneel to a lie." The air cracked like lightning. The Empress raised her hand, and a wave of force lashed out toward him, pure energy screaming through the sky. But Raylan didn't flinch. The spire responded again, its old code now part of him. Golden shields rose from the ground, deflecting the blast back into the air, and with it came a surge of memory, not his own, but hers. He saw her, long ago, younger, scared, not a queen, just a girl trying to hold together a dying world. He saw the war, the sacrifice, the lies she buried to protect what little remained, and the moment she chose to become something colder, something untouchable. But time had passed, and her reasons had turned to chains. Raylan dropped the shield and stepped toward her. "You were strong once," he said quietly, "but strength without mercy becomes fear." The Empress's hands shook. She looked not like a tyrant now, but like someone who had lost everything. Kalith placed a hand on her mother's shoulder, gently, not to hurt but to say goodbye. The Empress lowered her head, and the wind carried away her crown. Later, in the court that had once been filled with golden robes and fake smiles, Raylan stood before the people, not to take power, but to release it. No more forced bonds. He said, no more blood rights, no more queens, no more thrones. The people watched, silent and waiting. "We don't need rulers," he said. "We need choices." And slowly, they began to cheer, not with shouts, but with quiet hope. Kalith stood beside him, not as a princess anymore, but as someone free. As the sun rose over a new empire, Raylan finally let himself smile. He had come to this world as a stranger. He had been chosen by accident, bound by blood, hunted, tested, and in the end, he didn't deflower a princess because of duty. He did it because they chose each other. In the ashes of a broken tradition, something new was born. Not a kingdom, not a throne, but a future.